here's what's going to happen. We're going to start this session up. We're going to have a great chat, and then they're going to talk, and I get to actually catch my breath. And then we're going to do an AMA here, and we're going to have a little AMA discussion about what's going on there as well. But we're going to take that AMA over to Theater C, and we'll do an AMA. So you're going to hear a lot of good stuff about AI from these experts. But what's going to be really cool is then you're going to be able to ask them questions, because we all have so many questions about AI, and these guys are AI experts. So you just want to start? All right, okay. And now we're about to start the next session. It's not really what it is. So it's AI as your creative partner. This is all about exploring how AI tools transform content, automating tasks, telling better stories, learning strategies that can help you streamline your workflows, boost creativity, stay competitive in this really, really quickly changing market. How many of you are using AI in your creative process? How many of you are scared that AI is going to take your job away? How many of you are like, I love robots? Okay, see, I agree. So, moderator of our session, Renee Teeley, is the Chief Creative Officer from Up, and she will be joined by Gabe Michael, who is VP and Executive Producer for AI at Edelman, Todd Terrazas, who is the CEO of FBRC.ai, does amazing things in the space, including some awesome research, and Logan Lawler works at Dell Pro Max AI, and at Dell, obviously, and works on building workstations and other things so that people can run AI in their premises without having to subscribe or use services in the cloud, along with other stuff. So with that said, Renee, it's your stage. Come on up. And when we're done, we'll have a fun AMA. Oh, a big round of applause, please, for these guys. Thank you.
And for Jim. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you so much for being here. I am very excited about the session. I've already learned a few things from this amazingly talented group here. As Jim mentioned, this session is really about really diving into the real world applications of AI. So not just the hype, not just theory. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about everyday workflows, what's working, what isn't working. And I'd love to actually hear from you guys a bit too before we get started in how you're using AI. And if you're not, why are you not using AI? Is there anyone here that wants to share maybe a project that you've worked on before where you've implemented AI and it either worked well or it just made your work so much harder? Great. I'll just bring this down, Pete.
Well, I'm a visual effects supervisor, and I'm working in post on a film right now, and every time I turn around, there's another AI tool that I can use, but a lot of them aren't very good. When you get into the weeds, like with rotoscoping, there's a good example. They look good superficially, but when you look at them from a professional point of view, they're very poorly done, and you have to rework a lot of it, and it's just not worth it. But there's some other things like color correction within After Effects, where if I'm compositing an image together, I can color correct for the various layers in After Effects, which works great. And I'm not a color person, but it allows me to keep consistency across my shots. So, it changes, and I only discovered this one plugin just a couple of weeks ago, and it's hard to keep up, but there's good and bad all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's a good example of where there's been some hype in the industry that hasn't really lived up to it, and then also things that are just naturally integrated into your workflow. So definitely appreciate that. So for the panelists here, let's just jump into it. What are some of the best tools that you've seen today that are actually working well for creators, big or small? Can be editing, script writing, animation, some of the tools that have worked well for you. Let's start with you.
You want me to kick it off? All right.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I've got a bunch. Okay. Here, let me first say what you all do as creative people I will never be able to do. So I would never be worried about losing your job. I look at AI as really gasoline and accelerator to the creative process in general. So I was working in the animation studio. Can't tell you which one, but you've definitely seen their work on Netflix, hint, hint, where they are in the process of creating a new show. And the whole scope and the idea was, hey, character design takes us a really, really long time. It takes us 2 to 3 days for our animators to draw out, you know, the line density, the shading, the color, all of the stuff that creative people do really well. And the scope of the idea was, how do we take our previous work and create, you know, a LoRa model, which you use with Stable Diffusion, to basically impart all of line density, shading, color onto this new design very quickly to save us about 75% of the time, not because we're trying to save money, but we want to give the artist that 75% of their time back to make the design even better. And the tool that we use to create that is OneTrainer. You can go to GitHub, download it. It's very, very simple. Really use it on any PC. Dell would be preferred, you know, but whatever. And an NVIDIA graphics card. And it doesn't matter if it's animation, doesn't matter if it's, you know, hand-drawn artwork, doesn't matter if you do circle designs. It doesn't matter. It can learn any type. And with your creative mind and how you prompt it, you'll be able to get out very good stuff.
Love it. Gabe, can you walk us through a workflow of how you're using AI in your day-to-day, like it's actually part of your workflow?
Yeah. Day-to-day is ChatGPT or Claude. Every single day, it's my second brain. And I've heard somebody call it this, and I forget who it was, so I can't give attribution correctly, but it's my cognitive offloader for productivity. It takes a lot of the thinking or that stress that is in my brain. And most of the time I don't even need ChatGPT. I just kind of use it as it's a place I start typing. Like, I need you to write this, and then I like write the majority of the thing anyway. But then also creating different processes for things, using it. But then I also use, Runway Gen 4 on a daily basis, Luma AI on a daily basis. I use all the tools every single day. So it really depends on what the project is and what stage of the project I'm in, but I'm in it deep every single day.
I don't think there's been a day in the last year that I haven't used AI in some way. So I definitely understand that. So Todd, I'd love to understand, are there any tools that you've tried that just didn't work for you?
Gosh. Who do I want to throw under the bus right now? Tool
Be honest.
didn't work. I mean, it also comes down to like, how great are you at prompt engineering? So like for me, right, my day to day is similar to what Gabe just said. Every day I'm using probably ChatGPT, Perplexity or something, right? Just like help me maybe write better emails, maybe think through some strategy. I do pitch decks all day long, right? I'm always a pitch guy. So I'm always developing pitch decks. So I'm using image generation. So I use Midjourney and like Ideogram, or I'm playing around with one company called Open Art that we work with. But to tell you one that doesn't really work, actually, yeah, we can get into that. Dolly. I never really liked the outputs from Dolly forever, but now with 4.0, it's pretty ridiculous. Who here's used the new 4.0? Probably saw your news feeds going crazy with Ghibli, you know, Ghibli renditions of it all. I think that's been pretty remarkable, especially because now you can actually add text into image. And so that's how it's been doing really well. But yeah, before Dolly definitely was not really working well. Midjourney's always been as a go-to for me. They just released their new V7, right? And so, yeah, I can't really think about one that really failed for me.
So that was, I'll let you have that one. It was a little bit of a cheat because you said one that didn't work and now it works. But I am glad you mentioned Dolly because I would have jumped in and said the same thing. I think that it's certainly gotten a lot better than where it was a couple weeks ago, for sure. Let's talk a bit more about hardware versus local AI and then also in the cloud. So how does local AI processing compare to cloud-based AI? And what are your recommendations for creators that want to use this? So which one should they use?
So you asked the Dell guy if we should
I'm
be
looking
local
right
or
at
not.
you,
Okay.
of course.
Let me give you an answer you're probably not expecting. Of course, I'd love for you to use a Dell or use any local computer. But depending on what you're doing, if you're using the cloud and that works for you, I'm not going to tell you not to do something that's good for you. However, there's risks and rewards for doing both. How many people are worried about any sort of IP infringement or having your data stolen or et cetera, getting out in the wilderness, whatever? You risk that with cloud versus you don't really have that locally, right? Next, do you want to have an OpEx or a capital expenditure that you're spending a couple of $1,000s on? Or would you rather pay your cloud credits, whatever that might be, over the course of many, many months? So those are the decisions that you have to make. I will say that did anyone go or follow GTC, the NVIDIA technical conference this year, other than you, because I know I saw you there? So with local compute, really everything AI is all dependent on the GPU, right? So with NVIDIA's new Blackwell architecture, like it has doubled or tripled the amount of VRAM and different features that makes things like, well, it's Llama 4 now apparently, but like putting Llama 4 405B locally on a singular GPU inside of a workstation that sits on your desk. These things were not possible a couple of months ago, and now they are possible. So pick what you want. I like Dell, and risk versus reward.
I'm so sorry to admit this, but I am an Apple user. However,
oh God.
However, I did some research recently and I found out that it doesn't seem like Mac computers are that good for running AI locally.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm not going to ask the Dell guy.
Yeah, don't ask that.
But I'm going to ask Gabe. So can you talk a little bit about what creators should look for in hardware so they can efficiently run locally?
Well, it depends on what type of creator you are. If you were working for an enterprise company, or are you working just on your own? And you have to make a decision based off of not just cloud-based versus local, but depending on what your risk tolerance is for your organization and what they dictate. At Edelman, we have very strict policies for what we can do. Like if we're doing anything that's cloud-based, we have to have client sign off on it. We have to have proper indemnification from the tools themselves for us. But then also on the hardware side, if we want to go local, we are not allowed to use open source tools. So that kind of defeats the purpose a little bit of doing the local versus the cloud based. And so we kind of find ourselves in the middle quite frequently.
What do you think would be the trade-off for a solo creator?
It depends on your technical knowledge. If you're going to be able to do a lot of the coding or even just learn, the Comfy UI workflows that you would have to do it locally, then that may be the best thing for you because you can train your own LoRa's. You can, really create your workflow in the way that you want to do it. But if you're more comfortable in using the UI of one of the current models out there, then I would go for it. Most of them say that they're not training off of the data that's up in the cloud. We'll see. It'll come down to it, but that's, the space is refining now. And I think a lot of the companies are seeing what people are needing and the questions that they have, and those are starting to be answered.
Now you don't even for Comfy UI, leveraging open source, traditionally, right, you would have to have a PC, a super powered like GPU, with enough VRAM, and then you would be able to run everything locally. But now there's a lot of different services like a company called Playbook 3D where you can actually run these Comfy UI, workflows in the cloud. They're doing the inferencing up in the cloud, leveraging other services. And so now they're making it, over time because we're seriously in the first inning right now. AI for creative use is seriously, we're in the first inning and things are just going to get better and better when it comes to like these very powerful tools like Comfy UI, where again, it was very much an advanced user type of a setup. It still is, but you're going to start seeing more and more services being provided to leverage these advanced tools in a more intuitive way.
So in terms of using some of these advanced tools, are there any budget concerns? Like, are certain tools like really expensive? Are there tools that are more accessible to a smaller creator or solo creator?
They're like what? VO2 probably is one of the most expensive video models out there right now. I forget the exact economics, but each one of these video models, right, all have, their own pricing structures. And depending on how good you're at prompting and getting to, actual final pixel or final, scene that you're looking for, it could go into thousands of dollars, right?
And so runway's like 1,000, right? Or 1,500 a year.
Yeah, it's around there. Yeah. But it also depends on what you're replacing with it. Are you replacing a stock library with it, which costs around the same amount of money? Are you replacing like a production with it, right? So it really depends. Is this just an added tool that you have to pay for, or are you using it for, actually replacing?
Actually, to that point, it's when we're looking at certain budgets, people are looking at their I can't smart. You just said it. Stock footage. I was just referring. Stock footage budget, and they're saying, okay, how can I take a percentage of this and actually use it towards AI tools now? And so there are people thinking about, okay, how do I maybe cut this budget in half, but then use that for developing more images using whatever your video model of choice is.
And a lot of the stock sites are now pulling the APIs from the video models. Like Artlist now has one. I think everyone has one. Envato has their own, but it's really the APIs from the bigger models. So you're still using it we're going to find a way to work it into everything.
Yeah, I love talking about the kind of budget trade-offs because I think all of us probably have some subscription service that we're paying for that we're not using, maybe multiple ones. And so kind of looking through those and figuring out what can you get rid of and put it towards something that you actually use every day.
Even with music, right? We're talking right now only really about video, but even with music and developing new soundtracks, you got you can call it controversial, like the Udio and Suno type products that are out there. And right now, I think they're all in lawsuits, right? With the major record labels for their own reasons. I think over time, you're going to start seeing ways where ethically trained models are going to be helping you not only take video and imagery, but then also audio. So it could be doing synthesized voices with maybe 11 labs. It could be leveraging one of these things like Suno or Udio to create music and soundtracks, but knowing that you're actually compensating the end user that was trained upon.
Yeah. So, we'll get more into the ethical side of AI. I feel like at this point, there are so many AI companies that are being sued in various different ways. But we'll get into that. So, let's jump into what is agentic AI and how is it different from other tools like ChatGPT? And I'm going to throw this one out there for anyone that wants to answer.
All right. I'll break it down and try. So generative AI, you're generating something, right? Whether it's a video, image, audio. Agentic, think of it as you're using AI to do another task. So think of it like, hey, instead of like, for example, I have a one-on-one with my boss that I absolutely love attending and I need to move that one-on-one, right? I can, instead of me going to that planner, looking for an open spot, clicking, I can use Copilot and say, hey, move one-on-one to Ryan to next open slot on Tuesday. That's agentic AI. And that's, if you watch the keynote with NVIDIA at GTC, spoke a lot about agentic AI. And I think, there was waves, right? Generative lasts probably year and a half, 2 years, where I think, generative agentic is now what you're starting to see where it's more task, automation, things like that. That's how I would describe it.
Is anyone here on the panel using agentic AI in a way that's maybe different that you want to talk about, especially when it relates to anything in the creative field?
Not really.
Not yet. I've definitely tested some things, but none of it works yet. Really, when it comes to agentic, because you're utilizing multiple AI agents, right, to complete specific narrow tasks. And then you're supposed to have this type of orchestrated team of these AI agents, right, to help you perform a multitude of tasks. But what I use it for, I guess the best version of an agentic platform I've used is maybe deep research from OpenAI, right? So you want to go deep on some certain topic. You're going to, tell it what you want. But then it comes back and asks more clarifying questions. And then you keep on, going back and forth like ping pong, answering questions at Thanksgiving. Then it's like, are you ready? I'm like, yeah, just go for it. And then like 15 minutes later, you get like 30 pages of this research report. And then you can go using their Canvas feature to be able to go in and be like, actually, can you double click into this area? Or anyways, you can kind of start like going through that entire corpus that is sped out for you and then actually highlight sections and then have it go even deeper on research or even doing clarifying thoughts. And so that's the best version of like an agentic platform I've used, where it's OpenAI's deep research.
Yeah, it sounds like we're still pretty early days until we get to a point where there's something usable. Before we move on to a different topic though, with agentic AI, when it does work, what is the balance between letting it do autonomous tasks and also having some human oversight to it?
Actually, now remembering the times that AI tools didn't work, and so I'll throw someone under the bus. So there's two different companies that are using it that are claiming this an agentic type storytelling tool. One's called Hicksfields.ai. Another one I know that's early is called Wonderspace. And it's early, so like I'm not really throwing shade, but it's like you write in one prompt about the story that you want. You then, after you do that one prompt, you say how long you want it. So do you want 15 seconds, 30, 60? I think it goes up to 90 seconds. After that, it tells you if you want landscape or horizontal, and then or vertical, I mean, and then you wait, and it will create this whole story for you. But for the most part, like they try to do some dubbing, and the dubbing doesn't really work, or like you see the mouth moving, but then there's no audio, or there is audio and there's no mouth moving, or like there's like double heads and all this crazy stuff. And it's because, again, it's trying to simplify this very hard task that us creators, right, go through, is just like from ideation through distribution. There's a lot of steps and a lot of nuances to get it right. And there's certain tools out there, like the ones I just described, that are just trying to just do one shot, one prompt, and somehow you're just going to have this perfect story at the very end of the rainbow. And it's just not there yet. And I don't really believe that even in the years to come, that's going to be the real, like, intuitive way for people to be telling stories. Maybe if you wanted to do something with like your kids, and like, we're going to have fun bedtime stories now, we're going to use that type of tool. That's fun. But if you're actually going to be out there trying to make money and actually like tell very cohesive storylines, those type of platforms I think are just far away from being actualized in like a real meaningful setting.
And I think most of the attempts at the agentic AI for creative tools are product managers and product developers trying to think of what the creative process is and develop it, and not without the thought and the foresight of somebody being in the creative field and talking to them. It's starting to happen. There's a lot of great tools that are coming of age now, but I kind of feel like that was the initial step missed in that.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have that. You have to have, I hate the human in the loop term. I hate it so much, because if I'm creating something and I'm using a computer or AI as a tool, I'm in control of the process. And the last thing I want is to just be like, make me a story about this. Now, if I created custom GPTs based on, I had a TikTok channel, I did a full analysis of the data, all the top performing tools, things like that, uploaded a report, and I said, analyze this report for me. What are the top 10 performing videos on here? Boom, cool. What does that script look like? And then can we break it down? Yeah, I made great things that could immediately pump out a script based on any topic as a first draft. But is there a world where I want to see that go immediately to start creating that script without any sort of, human interaction? No,
Yeah.
not whatsoever.
Yeah, I suspect a lot of creatives would also have a hard time just letting some AI create everything and put their name on it.
Yeah.
So I think that would actually hold a lot of creatives back. Well, now that we've got Todd to actually throw a couple of companies under the bus, let's move on to some of the messy stuff. So some creators think that AI is devaluing some of their work. So I think especially editors, but there's other types of creators too. Do you think AI is killing creativity, or is it opening up to more people?
I personally think the industry itself has devalued the work, not AI. I think AI is a solution to that problem, because we all as creators just have to do more. Like, how many people here just have to fight to get what your day rate was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, right? But now we can move faster and we can do more things, because we're going to have to create more. We just have to have content everywhere, and it's not an option not to have it. Whether it's a brand, whether you're a personal creator, you just have to do more. And I think that this is going to be the thing that will let us get there.
Yeah. In terms of doing more, sorry, this might actually be a good one for you. So in terms of doing things more with AI, I think we've probably all seen AI content on social now. You can kind of spot it when it's in ads and things like that. Do you think that we're at a point where we're just going to get flooded with AI content, or do you think there's still room to stand out with that human element?
It's already happening. I mean, it's the AI slop, right? Now you democratize access for everyone to be a storyteller, right? But remember that there's always there's a ton of bad scripts out there that never get made for a reason. And now you're allowing a lot of people, for better or worse, to be able to just like push that stuff out. And, I feel like that's going to help raise the bar of what quality storytelling is and what quality, what a quality narrative would really be. But still you're going to be flooded with a ton of this, mediocre stuff and things that have 6 fingers and like all these other messed up, dysfunctional, pixels. And I think back to like the original question, like, is AI like destroying creativity? I think us being a victim of like the platforms, right? Creators that are on TikTok or Instagram or any of these platforms or YouTube, right? Are constantly having to like work towards the algorithm, right? And they're not really building for themselves. They're building for the algorithm. And even like earlier, right, we were talking to that gentleman about like how like there's so many like toxic platforms like X, right? Where it's just like they want to show hate because they know it drives engagement. And all they give a shit about is driving engagement for better or worse. And so it's like, how do you find like the diamond in the rough now when you're being flooded on all these different platforms with a lot of just mediocre content? And so hopefully there's gonna be certain types of better recommendation engines or other types of platforms being developed. But right now, I don't know. I can kind of sometimes be an anti-AI person as much as I'm an AI guy, because it just like makes me feel weird when I'm watching a short film. And I know like they're experimenting, but it's like trying to like reproduce a human. And the character consistency is not there and whatnot. But then I go watch like a really great film with real humans. I'm just like, I can feel the struggle that team had to go through shooting that one scene. And I don't know how many takes they had to do, but they got those actors to do that one crazy thing, and the team behind it, you just know like a lot of love and a lot of, a hard work went into make that scene. And then when you go look at like a similar scene that was done with AI, I just don't feel it inside of me, right? It's just, it takes it away from me. So I feel like that's why you're probably going to be seeing a lot more animation. You're going to be seeing a lot more AI being utilized with animation because it's make believe, right? There's an animated character, and so you can like kind of run with it a little bit better. But I think that we're far off, even though there are people doing it, where you're going to be having these AI human-like characters on the big screen.
I mean, even though we kind of beat a dead horse, like I said, I'm not creative, but I think people that are creative, that have, like that artistic bone, that have that creative gene, when I look at AI content, I actually think it makes what y'all do stand out even more. Like, to be honest, like you can tell the difference. And how do you define content? I wouldn't even put what a human makes versus AI even in the same content bucket. Like, you know what I mean? It's completely different. And this is totally random. And I hope my wife's not watching, thank God. But I will sometimes let my daughter, who's 10, when we're driving, play on my phone, like looking at YouTube shorts. I can tell which ones were made with AI and which ones weren't. Do you know which ones she watches more of? The ones that are real, because she connects with it. She's like, Dad, this is off. Like, why is this hand all floppy? Like, she knows, right? At the end of the day. So I think if anything, badly made AI content raises the bar for good made human content.
Yeah, I think eventually we'll get to a point where the technology is in a place where you won't have 6 fingers and things kind of flopping around. So it'll look more believable. But that doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to connect with it in the same way they do a human. Like, people watch reality TV for a reason. Let's dive into some of the ethical pieces of it. So in terms of being able to use AI as part of your creative process, are there any ethics to consider? Like, should there be guidelines around this?
Yeah, I can speak to that on 2 fronts. On my personal projects on the creator side, and then the Edelman side, the agency side. So on the personal side, I like to experiment with everything. And if you're not experimenting, if you're a creative professional at all and haven't even tried any of the tools, then you're behind. You have to, whether you like it or not, you should know what you're up against, no matter what. So I try every tool there. Can I use all the tools in a safe enterprise space? Absolutely not. And are they all ethical? Definitely not. But the space is evolving and the contracts are evolving. Like at Edelman, so we work with Adobe. We have Adobe Firefly. We have Runway. We've been talking to Luma, and all of them have really great enterprise agreements. And the big thing for us is indemnification. Do you stand behind your model? Will you indemnify us if something happens and an image pops up that isn't supposed to be there? And these are the few companies that are saying, yes, they will. So you kind of have to look at that. And there's ethical, or claiming ethical models that are popping up, like Moon Valley and some other ones that are trained on fully licensed data and things like that. So as the space evolves, we're going to continue to see a lot of that.
In terms of contracts, so I know you're looking at it more from an enterprise kind of standpoint to figure out what's safe, but for an individual solo creator, what are the things they should be looking for when they're reviewing terms of service or contracts using AI?
Same things. Are they putting the risk all back on you? Like, I love Suno and I use it and I create, songs and background music with it, but the risk is all on me. They're saying, you're using this, we'll give you $100 if you get sued. Okay, right? And so you still have to look at that. Read the terms of service. If you don't know how to read the terms of service, pop it into ChatGPT and ask it if it's safe. And ask it what's your risk as a creator. And it'll tell you. And it'll tell you in 4 seconds, and you'll know, okay, these are the things I have to worry about. Can I use this? Can I put it on my YouTube channel? Yeah, sure. Can you put it in a major motion picture? Not right now, not with these types of models.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you always start with AI, but you're never going to be ending with AI. So using it for pre-production, for ideation, for previs, for setting up shots. There's so many great ways to be using these tools, even if they weren't ethically trained, just for concept art, just for getting that crazy wacky idea in your head out into the world so you can convey a thought, get the money, hopefully then use that in a pitch to go get the real money so they can go hire the real people to go do the real production, right? But right now, I think that's why you're not going to really see much of these AI tools being used, maybe in a final frame, in a final pixel, final, delivery of a show, maybe in some small form factors. But you'll see a ton of it. I mean, we are seeing a ton of it in pre-production because it's safeguard, whereas you're not using what you're producing to go make money. You're using it for how to set up your shots, figure out where you're going to be. I don't know. It's doing more of the work before you actually are on set, where then time is money, right? And so I think there's just a lot of really great use cases in the pre side and the ideation to pre-production and previs side and look booking. And then when it comes to post-production, of course, you're seeing news of, I forget the show, but the show on Amazon that came out where they were talking about how they use some AI and some visual effects techniques. I forget. Does anyone remember this one? No? Anyways. House of David. Thank you. So you are starting to see some AI tools, especially in visual effects, being used in big commercial properties. But that, I don't know the details of that one production, but you're starting to see it a little bit, but it's not going to be end-to-end AI. It's going to be you start with something, and then you're going to have a lot of compositing on top of it.
Right now, today.
Today. Tomorrow's different.
Tomorrow and a week from now, maybe. I see them as a lot of the models as the engine behind it, right? And so whether they use ethical data behind it or not, that's going to be the driving engine, and it's going to, they're going to be renderers for 3D, right? Whether that's a motion capture system, whether that's a full 3D model, that's the direction that we're headed. And that's what I'm excited, because you're working with real humans and you're controlling the process along the way and using the model as the renderer.
So we're going to do something real quick that's rapid fire.
Okay.
So
I'm looming over here. So
I know, I saw it.
Okay.
Rapid fire.
Jim's behind you.
One tool that you recommend that creators should look at that they could implement into their work right now that's not ChatGPT. Go.
One trainer.
Go.
Runway Gen 4.
Luma Labs.
All right, and that's our time.
The thing is that your time is almost half done. Because now we're moving on to singers every day and night. So, reason I'm doing this over there right now, where you can ask these guys
Anything. So big round of applause for Renee, for Gabe, for Todd, for Logan, for all of you guys. Bring your
Thank you
questions
all.
over there and we'll do a quick AMA.